School was to me a sentence of penal servitude, said George Bernard Shaw. I tend to agree with him somewhat. This incident dates back to my school days in class 8. In the early 70s, the fire department mandated our school to have all the electrical cabling redone as the quality of cable use was found not up to standards. When the cabling work started, there were bits and pieces of cable littered all on the floor, which students would pick up, bend it in U shape, and use a rubber band to catapult it at others. The hits were painful, and the soreness would last for days. But then we naughty chaps always found fun even in pain, little realizing that these silly pranks can at times result in drastic outcomes. As there was no outdoor activity during the monsoon, the chaps would be confined to the classroom during breaks, and the bullets would fly as in a battlefield. It was a matter of time before one of them got me, and it sure did. I was hit on the back below the right shoulder, and the pain was excruciating. Despite my best efforts to find who the culprit was, I could not. I had suspected a few, but did not have foolproof evidence to nail them. After a few weeks of probing, I got to know from a girl, under condition of secrecy and anonymity, who the perpetrator was, and decided to seek revenge. His classmate Anil was usually seated in one of the back benches, but for the Hindi class, the sir would have him seated right in the first bench to have him under his close observation. The Hindi sir was our class teacher, and so the day always began with the Hindi class. I was seated in the third bench of row number 1, and he was seated in the first bench of row number 2. The seating arrangement provided me a great angle to fire my shot. As the rain impinged upon earth on a moist morning in July 1972, the roll call began. Anand, yes sir. Anil, yes sir. Ashok, yes sir. Bharat, present sir. Virendra, yes sir. I decided this is the opportune moment to seek revenge. I aimed at Anil, shot the bullet as it was termed those days, and put my head down as if to read a book. All of a sudden, the roll call stopped. "Arey, tera bullet sir ko laga yaar," whispered my benchmate. The sir had covered his face with his palms and was writhing in pain. "Who bet? Who did this?" he asked. Everyone looked around, but the class in unison feigned ignorance. It was only my benchmate who knew that it was me. "क्या करूं यार? बोल दूं?" I asked him. "चुप करके बैठ, देखते हैं क्या होता है," he responded. When the sir removed his hands from his face, there was a cut on his cheeks below his left eye, and it was bleeding. He immediately rushed to the staff room where he was administered first aid by the school nurse. I was shocked by the agony and pain I had caused him. But then, even though it was unintentional, I was overcome by guilt. In a short while, the headmaster arrived in the class and sternly inquired, "Who did it?" I stood up, raised my hand, and owned up. He asked me to pick up my belongings, summoned me to his room, and after some questioning and a round of severe caning, wrote a note on my school diary, summoning my father to report to his office within 24 hours. When I returned home early from school, my mom questioned me and I explained everything that happened. "Be ready for a showdown when Dad returns from work tonight," she shouted. When Dad got back from work, Mom briefed him. And after he had finished dinner, I explained everything that happened. Surprisingly, the first thing he did was to praise my honesty and owning up the offense. But then he said that he won't be coming to school with me. Instead, he wrote a note to the headmaster stating, "My son is entirely at fault and feels guilty. Please punish him in whatever way you deem fit, as he deserves it." Next day, I reported to the headmaster's office without my dad. "Why have you come alone? Where is your dad?" yelled the headmaster. "He has written a note to you, sir, on my school diary." I replied and I showed it to him. He read it and then he ordered suspension from school for 1 week. I was disgusted and disappointed. I met my benchmate as he was coming out of the washroom and I informed him of the suspension. "पागल, चुप करके बैठा होता तो बच जाता ना, अभी भुगत ले." But I felt that I had done the right thing by owning up, as otherwise the class would have been branded by the teachers as a bunch of dishonest rogues. So, fortunately for me, during that week, the school remained closed for 2 days due to waterlogging caused by heavy downpour. And there were a few lessons on other days as teachers couldn't report to school. They were free lessons. So not much learning lost. But then there was a good lesson learned. When you know you are at fault for a problem, the mature and responsible thing to do is to stand up and own up the mistake, accept the consequences, and be part of the solution. Recognize where you went wrong and be prepared to fully own it and what you did. I spoke to the Hindi sir to explain what I did was unintentional and tendered a written apology. I soon realized that I had won the respect and love of all my teachers. The school at its end enforced upon the contractor to clean the premises before the day end. All is well that ends well.